Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. In 2021, you probably recall Texas got hit by a massive ice storm, the Texas freeze they call it. Now, I think there was anywhere between, on the low end, 250 or so deaths, and on the high end, upward of 700 deaths from this ice storm. The problem is that most of those people died just because they weren't prepared for that storm. That's it. If they would have prepared a little more, they could have survived. Right now, approaching the United States or forming around the United States is a massive ice storm that will make the Texas storm look small in comparison, as I'll show you in today's show. And so the purpose of what I'm doing tonight is doing everything that I can to help give you the tools to make sure that you're safe, to make sure your family's safe. Because even if one or two more people can be more prepared from this show's content and the guide that I'm giving out, which I'll talk to you about shortly, then I've accomplished my goal with the show. If just one person doesn't freeze to death because they followed some bit of advice that they saw in the show, then that's the most I can ask for. So there's three different parts of this show. I'm first going to take a look at what this storm is, what we know about it, the current trajectory, the predictions. Now, these things are changing because all these predictions are based upon models. So, take it with a grain of salt, but they're getting a little more accurate as it gets closer. I'm also going to take a look at what happened in Texas and what we can learn from Texas and what we can then extrapolate from that information to better understand what could be happening over the course of the next few days. And then the largest chunk of the show is I'm just going to be going over very practical information on how to stay safe during the storm, how to make sure that you don't freeze to death, right? How to make sure your friends and family are safe, your pets, how to make sure your property is not damaged from burst pipes, etc. And it's not just going to be like, okay, go buy a generator, because unfortunately right now, I'm sure most generators are sold out in the areas that have the ice and snow coming. So again, the purpose of this show is not to be a fear monger, not to scare you. I hope that the experts are wrong, but unfortunately, everything is pointing to this being what many are calling an absolutely historic storm. So before we jump into the content of the show, I actually put together a guide. It's free. I'm not selling anything. This is just as a public service. So I put together it's maybe like a 20 or so page guide that you can look at on an iPad, on digital. It's really printer friendly. It's 8.5 by 11, so you can print it. I highly recommend right now you go get this guide. So the URL for it is winterstormready.com. Okay? So right now, just take a second, open a different browser on your phone or wherever you're watching, go to winterstormready.com. You just put in your name and your email, then it opens up a little button and you download it. It is a complete guide. It's very, very simple. It's very easy to read, but it has checklists. It has like bulleted information. Like it's a lot of the information I'll be going over in today's show is actually just based upon what's in this guide. It's a very easy read. It's not some complex book. It is really meant to be a resource for you. There's even a whole couple pages of checklists, a place to write down important phone numbers. It's really a tool to help you during not just this winter storm, but future storms in general. So I really recommend right now go download it, because it'll also be a reference for the show. You can be looking at it as I'm going through the show, and you'll see that a lot of the show structure, especially as I get into the second half of the show where I'm going over the specifics of how to be prepared, it's based upon the information in that guide. So again, the URL is winterstormready.com. winterstormready.com. It's free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's just for you to have this. So go there. Okay, now jumping into the show, I first want to pull up a video over on Twitter. This is a guy named Ryan Hall, who coins himself as, quote, the digital meteorologist and the internet's weatherman. Pretty smart guy. He's done some great content on this. So he does a really good quick overview of this storm, which will be helpful in setting up our discussion. He says, a major winter storm is targeting 160 million people this weekend. While snowfall models are shifting, the risk of icing, power outages, and dangerous travel are locked in. Record cold temperatures will follow. Avoid road trips and prepare your home now. So I'll play this real quick for you. It is 1 minute and 9 seconds, and we'll start with that.
upcoming major winter storm, here's where we stand right now. Last night, some of the models shifted north, way north, but not all of them. There's a lot of noise on social media right now about exact totals and specific snowfall maps, but the fine details are still not locked in. Here's what is locked in. A major winter storm is coming Friday through the weekend. 160 million people are under the gun by Sunday morning, and winter storm watches from New Mexico all the way to Tennessee are expanding right now. There's going to be a snow side to this storm and an ice side. If you end up in the icing zone, plan for days without power. School cancellations next week across a huge area. And whatever you do, don't plan for a road trip this weekend. People are going to get stuck on the highways. And after this storm passes, we're looking at record cold temperatures sticking around for a while. That part is guaranteed. Charge your devices, stock up on essentials, check on elderly neighbors, and have a plan for staying warm if the power goes out. The models are going to keep shifting, but here soon we are going to start talking about specific numbers for your area.
So, just a basic overview. One thing I'll tell you, and I'll say it multiple times during this show, is please share this show. There's nothing political in here. There's nothing divisive in here. It's just practical information. So if you have family in any of these affected areas, send them the show. If you don't want to send the show, send them the links where they can download the PDF. Like at least give them that. Say, hey, call up your mom after this show's over. Say, hey, mom, I know you're in Tennessee. That storm is coming. Look, there's a free guide. Okay, winterstormready.com. Just go to winterstormready.com. Download this PDF. It'll take you 10 minutes to read it. It's so easy to read through, but it has critical information. It's information that people will often be missing. Like that's just the reality of it. A lot of people are thinking, okay, how can I heat my home without power? I don't have a generator. I don't have a fireplace. There's actually really simple things you can do to heat your home, or at least heat the room that you're going to be staying in. And these are supplies that aren't going to be sold out, right? Obviously, everyone's going to Walmart right now and they're buying all the heaters, they're buying the generators. But there's actually supplies that I'm going to be focusing in because we're so close to this storm. I'm giving you a realistic checklist of things that will still be available that you can purchase at your local store that can help you. So just send, text it, email it, whatever it is. Tell people to go to winterstormready.com and get the PDF. They can print it. It will help save lives. I'm serious. So continuing, this guy right here, Mr. Global, funny name. He's a Forbes energy contributor. He's an oil and gas expert. So he has a really, really important overview. You can tell he knows what he's talking about how this will affect the energy infrastructure, because this is where it gets serious. Because if you live in a region where you don't have a fireplace, which is common for a lot of areas, especially the southern half of the United States, people don't have fireplaces. If you live in Texas or you live in South Carolina, you probably don't have a fireplace. So how do you heat your home? If it's 0 degrees outside for a couple of days straight, how do you heat your home? This is serious stuff, right? So understanding the electrical grid is really important in understanding how this storm will affect lives, and ultimately, unfortunately, how this storm will lead to a lot of people losing their lives. So I'll play this for you. It's about 2 minutes long. This is very important information here.
I've been waiting to talk about the storm that's coming this weekend because I didn't want to freak people out. And a lot of these forecasts never pan out, but this one is panning out, it looks like. Yeah, everyone's in agreement now that the crazy forecast is actually happening. This is going to be one of those storms you probably remember for much of your life. Basically, more than the eastern half of the United States is going to be below freezing. Most of that below zero. They're calling for, foot and a half of snow all through here, all the way to the mid-Atlantic, and 3 inches of ice in this pink band right here. 3 inches of ice is unbelievably catastrophic. That is worse than what Texas experienced in 2021. There's going to be loss of life. Anywhere there's 3 inches of ice, there's no power. There's not going to be a power line that's not on the ground when there's 3 inches of ice. And emergency services aren't going to be able to reach you because there's 3 inches of ice on the road. That's what's going to happen if this forecast is correct. The grid's going to fail. Refineries are going to shut down. Water systems are going to shut down. Could knock out a couple of LNG terminals if it goes far enough south on the Gulf Coast. This is going to be a disaster if this forecast is even close to accurate. I mean, a major disaster. Huge natural disaster across pretty much all the southern states. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you live in the pink area, you should plan to be without power for at least a week, maybe a month. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you need to prepare for it because it wouldn't be the first time it happened, okay? This is that. People went without power for a month in Texas in 2021. This is a repeat of that. For you folks in the upper Midwest, where it's going to be like 30 below, take the largest electric bill you've ever had in your life and add, 25% to that or more. Yeah. But more importantly, just be prepared. Thanks.
That's it. Be prepared. And I'll be doing, just so you know, a lot more this year. One of my big focus is actually getting back into a lot more education on preparedness. I've got the book coming out, Prep Like No. We have the ARC community that's coming out as well. It's going to be a big focus for me because what I can see is that one of the things that's happened to us as Americans, look back at our grandparents' generations, right? As a quote my wife oftentimes says, she says that we call it prepping, our grandparents called it living, right? So unfortunately, the average American is not living in a way right now that they can actually survive a lot of these disasters. So that's why it's so important for us as a nation to become more prepared, more self-reliant, to help each other, etc. So continuing, he mentioned the ice. I'm going to pull up this tweet right here. It says, what some people don't conceive is that a 1-inch line that spans 1,000 feet, so this is a 1-inch line of ice that spans 1,000 feet will gain 2,500 pounds from 1 inch of ice. A 132 kilovolt tower has 6 of these. So 3 inches of ice, which is the worst case for the models, would add 90,000 pounds per tower, plus a huge increased wind profile. They'll crumble like dry spaghetti noodles. Okay, I came across this. My mind was just blown by this and thinking, you don't think about that. You think, okay, well, how is ice so bad, right? How is it that ice causes all this destruction and huge trees to fall over? Even 1 inch of ice that spans 1,000 feet adds 2,500 pounds, let alone 3 inches of ice. So you see those big those towers or all the power lines. What happens when those lines have an extra 1,000 pounds on them, whatever distance they have between them? Someone also replied below, which is also very important, says exactly right. Plus, while they're still energized, let me actually open that up. While they're still energized, before you lose power, I can remember many calls for limbs on a power line and such, but you get to the green and blue buzzing, and eventually you get a surge to try to burn the limb off the line, followed by a loud bang that will make you think you're getting bombed. That's usually pretty efficient at kicking the jack out on a closet pole. Not sure, this guy's probably an electrician. Anyway, this is serious. Now you want to see, okay, here's another example. Play this video right here. This is in Aiken, South Carolina. This is from an ice storm in 2014 that spanned 2 days, February 12th to 13th. So 346,000 homes lost power and 1.5 million acres of timber were damaged across South Carolina. The video credit is from Mark Stein. So just look at this neighborhood here. This is just from around 1 inch of ice. Look at these trees that are down. The other thing to consider is that a lot of the trees in the South and trees in Middle America, they're not built to handle this kind of a weight. So you have these big, beautiful laurel oaks with these big, long, sweeping branches. Those trees are not made to handle this kind of weight. Trees up north, they're built for it. They've had it. Where I live in upstate New York, we recently had, last weekend we had 10 inches of snow. You look out, the trees are covered, everything's covered in snow. It's normal for us. We're used to it. I've got a fireplace. I've got 2 years worth of firewood. We've got a generator, backup propane. It's normal for us. So it's not dangerous nearly as much for a region where I'm at. The danger is in the areas where people are not used to this, where the local county does not have the snow trucks needed, where the local emergency services are not used to driving in ice when they can't even get to you. Because if there's an inch or 2 inches of ice on the road and you've got hypothermia and you're on kind of dying because you're not warm in your house, that ambulance can't even get to you. Right? This is how serious this becomes. So I want to take a quick look now at just doing a comparison between what happened in Texas and what it looks like the storm that's coming. Because if we look at the data from Texas and we do some extrapolation, we can get a general idea of what this could look like here in America, across the country. So I've got a little short presentation here. It's not very long. I put together some slides. I apologize. The slides are not up to my design standards personally, but I had to do this quickly because over the course of just from this morning, my wife and I put together the website. We put together the PDF to give away. And I put together 2 presentations and this live show. So it was a very, very busy day today. So unfortunately, it's, I guess, a normal looking PowerPoint, which is not what I strive for. Anyway, let me jump into this slideshow. Okay, so this is looking at the winter storm in 2026 now versus the Texas storm in 2021. Okay, so Texas, winter storm Uri. So 246 people died. Some estimates are saying it's over 700. 10 million people were without power, 4+ days with no electricity, between roughly 200 and 300 billion in damage, most costly natural disaster in Texas history, and 14.9 million that were under boil water notices, meaning that that's an indication of the water failure to have clean water coming from purification. Now, even looking at that, between 2 and 3 billion, I'm seeing some estimates saying this could be upwards of $1 trillion in damage to infrastructure, this storm that's coming for us. Okay, so this weekend storm, we're looking at between 175 to 200 million people that will be affected in some way by this storm. It's over 30 states. There's a 2,000-mile stretch. Up to 3 inches of ice, which is unprecedented. A lot of areas are getting between 6 and 24 inches of snow. Dangerous, life-threatening cold, and potentially catastrophic in the south. So the ice threat. So 3 inches of ice is around 50 pounds per square foot of that ice. So power lines will just snap. They won't sag, they will snap. Trees will collapse under the weight. The roads become impassable, even with snowplows. Snowplows don't work on ice. It doesn't. The thing is, you can't salt your way out of 3 inches of ice. The power restoration can take weeks. Okay, this is the reality of it. Some places might be out of power for upwards of a month in those areas, because what happens if half of the power lines in your region are actually down because of the ice? If you're one of those areas that got hit with 3 inches of ice, the complete infrastructure will collapse. Right? Now, I'm not saying we're entering into Mad Max era, but the infrastructure that gives us the comfortable life that we have will not exist in certain regions of this nation. Projected death toll. Again, this is just looking at the numbers and analyzing based upon the death rate in Texas of one state. These are some estimates that I kind of ran. Potentially between 2,000 and 3,500 deaths are expected. Saying this could be the deadliest winter storm in modern U.S. history. And again, that slide right there is why I'm doing this show. Because those 2,000 to 3,500 people, if they are prepared, and even though this is maybe only 48 hours away for some people, there is still so much that can be done in this limited time window to be prepared. And that little bit of preparation could literally mean the difference between life and death, which I'm going to be getting into very soon here. How people could die. Again, looking at analyzing the information of how people died in Texas and looking at typically what happens in these scenarios, that we're looking at hyperthermia, probably the number one killer. Estimated, again, based upon the numbers from Texas and extrapolating into this current storm, between 500 and 1,200 people will freeze to death. Between 375 and 875 are dying from carbon monoxide poisoning, which we'll get into in the next section. How does that happen? Car accidents on ice, a couple hundred there. People falling on ice, a couple there, a couple hundred there. Medical, no power, more there. And house fires from unsafe heating, right? 75 to 175. Power outages. So in Texas, around 10 million people. The projection with this storm is between 20 and 35 million people without power. And this could be between 3 and 10 days, or some areas even weeks. So I hope that this data, again, I'm not trying to scare you, but sometimes it's good to be scared, right? If there's a bear coming through my front door, it's good for me to be scared and think that bear might eat me. I better go get my shotgun. I better get my family out of the house. That bear might kill me. So fear is sometimes a good thing. The problem is that the fear is used as a weapon against us oftentimes, but that's a different story. So Again, this is serious. But also what you're looking at is cascading failures. So when the power goes out for days, water treatment plants fail. So why is it that all those people in Texas were on the boil water, right? Because the power treatments had failed. They couldn't purify the water. The water treatment facilities were failing because they had no power. They didn't have whatever backup generation power they had was not sufficient. And so people weren't getting clean water. And if you look at what happens, clean water is one of the number one killers in a situation that's hit by disaster. It's actually far more than anything else. If you look at the statistics of it, it's actually people dying from water-related illness, whether it's dehydration, which leads to death, which is part of it, or waterborne illnesses, etc. Okay, so again, cascading failures. Water treatment plants fail. Cell towers go down, so you can't call 911. Hospitals run out of generator fuel. That's catastrophic if they can't afford to keep all those people on the machines that require power to maintain their way of life and keep them alive. Grocery stores can't restock. We're already seeing footage. I'm seeing images and footage coming out of a lot of areas across this nation of completely empty shelves, right? The whole section of a big grocery store where all the water would be is completely empty. Eggs, everything empty. Okay, this is what happens. Again, this is why it's so important to prepare. It's so important, not because you're some doomsday prepper, but because you're being responsible. So for me and how my family is set up, if I can't go to the grocery store for a year, I will still feed my family because I've prepared for that. Like I've done that instead of going on vacations. Like that's just how I look at things. I've made sure that my family has what it needs in case a situation like this arises. So grocery stores can't restock. Gas stations can't pump fuel. There's no heat in freezing temperatures because of no power. The pipes are bursting, which means there's no water, not to mention flooding and property damage. And emergency services can't reach you. Okay? So the key, this is so important, folks, is that this is preventable. This is preventable. Most deaths will be from lack of preparation, unsafe heating methods, and not taking it seriously. And that's why I'm doing this, is because I want you to take this seriously. I spent all day preparing this, preparing information, preparing a guide, because I want you to take this seriously. I want to give you the tools so that you actually know the easy ways to be prepared. That's the purpose of this. So you still have time. You still absolutely have time. Okay? All right. So, jumping into the preparation phase of this presentation. I will pull up one more time. Okay. For those of you that just started watching the show, just came in, go to winterstormready.com, get this free PDF. All you do is you put in your name and your email, and actually it opens up a button. You can download it. It's free. You can send it to anybody you want to, right? Share this far and wide, because the presentation I'm going to get into now is more the practical how-to. And that's what's also reflected in this PDF here. Actually, the presentation was really built off of this PDF. So again, it's 8.5 by 11. It's very easy to print, even on black and white paper. Maybe it's like 20 pages or so. So I highly recommend get it, download it. Honestly, print it. Don't rely on using a screen to view it. If you still have a printer, which is kind of like, I guess, becoming more dinosaur these days to have a printer. If you do still have a printer, print it out. Or tomorrow when you're out getting your groceries or doing a run, stop by a Kinko's or a FedEx or whatever, print it out just so you have it, because it could be literally a life-saving resource for you. So again, that is winterstormready.com. Okay, I'm going to jump into the presentation, which is going to be covering just the core things, like the nuts and bolts of how to be prepared for this. Okay, so jumping in there now. Actually, wait, before we go in there, one other website I'm going to show you. This is the ARC community, right? So this is, I told you before at the beginning of the show, one of my big initiatives this year is to try to help Americans as a whole become more prepared for whatever comes, whether it's winter storms, whether it's World War III, whether it is some sort of pandemic, who knows? Okay, so part of that is actually trying to help people find more people that are like-minded. So that's a big drive behind the ARC community. It hasn't launched yet. We're launching in a couple of weeks. So the ARC community we're building it's going to be an online private community where you can meet people just like me. I'll be on there, but you can meet people that are like-minded, you can find people close to you so you can start building those connections of people that are close to you. Because there's nothing worse than being the one person that is saying, the sky is falling, and everyone's like, oh, look at that guy, Chicken Little, until it actually falls. So this community, it's really built around enabling you to build these relationships and find your people, to find people close to you that you can meet up with. So we're gonna have local chapters across the nation, so you can actually find and meet the people that share your values, right? It says the ARC community is a private network for those who cherish faith, family, and freedom, and where you can learn, connect, and prepare for uncertain times together. Okay, so if you want to be notified when that launches, it's a couple weeks from now, just go to buildthearc.com, put in your name and your email, and join the wait list. The links for the ARC community and for the Winter Survival Guide are going to be in the show description. So just kind of bookmark that in your mind. If you forget by the end of the show, information will be in the show description. Okay, getting into the actual nuts and bolts of preparation. Let me go and get this slideshow ready for you. Okay, all right. First off, if you haven't got the feeling yet, now I'll tell you again, this is serious. The storm will shut down entire regions. It will cause widespread, long-lasting power outages. It will make roads impassable for days, and it will kill people who are unprepared. We've got 2 or 3 days. It's a lot of time. Trust me, 2 or 3 days is a lot of time if you focus on it. Okay, one thing. Time is short, though. Stores will empty fast. I can guarantee you if you go to Home Depot right now or whenever you're watching this, if you go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, the generators will probably most likely be sold out. The little red gas cans, probably sold out. Space heaters, probably sold out. Propane heaters, firewood, these are the things that are going to be selling out probably by now. I'm sorry I didn't put the show together 3 days ago. I could have given you more warning. But obviously, if you can get a hold of a generator, a space heater, propane heaters, firewood, etc., great. Take advantage of it. But here the point, though, is think differently and buy what others won't. And this is why I've really thought this through. Okay, the storm's coming. It's going to be 2 days away. The stores are going to be stripped bare. What can you still go out tomorrow or today, whenever you're going out? What can you still go out and find that can potentially save your life? Okay? So, what to buy? Camping gear, tents, a 4 to 8 person tent, sleeping bags, hand warmers, headlamps, camping stoves, overlooked items people aren't going to be buying, candles and clay pots, which I'll get into that, wool blankets, pool noodles you can use for insulating your pipes, bubble wrap, again for insulation, kitty litter. You keep some kitty litter in your car. So if you get stuck, you go pour some of that kitty litter under your tires. It'll help you get traction in the snow. Power banks that you can charge up ahead of time so you can be charging your cell phone. A battery radio, Mylar blankets, pull cash out. Okay? Now, one thing about the tents, which I'll take a second to describe this for you, is that, actually, let me make sure that, let's see. Okay, I'll be getting into that. Okay, I'll be getting into the tent method in a couple of slides. So that's really important. But just this list right here, okay, and again, this is all inside the guide that at winterstormready.com. This is all in there. It's actually, there's even more detail in there. But bookmark this in your mind. I'll be talking about this in a few slides. Why would you go buy a tent? It seems kind of silly, right? Why would you go buy a tent for a winter storm? There's a really, really good reason for it, which we'll be getting into. Okay? Before the storm. Okay, sorry. Critical supplies. Water. Try to have 1 gallon per person per day. So plan, depending on what region you're in, say 7 to 10 days. Let's just say 10 days. So you want 1 gallon per person per day. And this is the minimum, right? This is not even getting into what you really need for sanitation. So this is just the bare minimum. If you're a family of 5, aim to have at least 50 gallons of water set aside. Right? Now, it's easy to do. If you have a bathtub, fill your bathtub. Do it now. Don't wait until it's too late. Fill your bathtub. There's a lot of other ways you can collect water, but we're not going to be going into that much detail yet, or right now. Food. Non-perishable, at least 7 to 10 days of food, manual can opener. Ideally, you're looking at food that doesn't require heating. So things that you can have, high calorie, whether it's protein bars, breads, things that will store, don't go out and buy a bunch of, raw meat that requires you to have power to cook on the stove. Heat, candles, matches, firewood, camping fuel. depending on what different kind of sources you have for heating. Make sure you're getting supplies that will help you heat. Light, flashlights, headlamps, extra batteries. Going and getting a big pack of those D-cell batteries and a nice kind of battery-powered lantern, that might give you the light you need. It's also wintertime, so it gets dark early. So what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have no power and spend, say, 3 days in total darkness. So what happens if someone trips and falls in the middle of the night and you have no way of lighting them up? It's key. Medical, make sure you have a first aid kit. At least 7 days of whatever medication. If you're on life-saving medication, make sure you have that stocked. I hope you do anyway. Other things, gas tank, full gas tank in your car. If you manage to get some of the little red gas canisters and fill those up. One thing, don't store them too close to the house. Store them properly. Now you don't want to leave them out in the middle of the winter at 0 degrees. You might run into issues of it freezing. So just be careful with that. But gasoline, cash, make sure you've got food for your pets, phone chargers, things like that. Again, this is just a quick list. There's more details in the actual PDF that you can download for free. Okay, continuing. Okay, this is okay. Before the storm, this is what you can do now. Okay, water. So at your home, fill containers with water. Now, this is something that, again, as the storm is approaching, these are things that you should have done or you're doing as the storm is approaching. So filling containers with water, dripping faucets. So this is one thing. If you have faucets, sink faucets that are on the exterior wall of your house, right? So say you have a kitchen sink that's on the outside wall. When it starts getting really cold, turn that faucet on with a very slow drip. Okay, it's going to help your pipes from freezing. So that's one thing. Put on a very slow drip. It's going to help them from freezing. Seal your windows up, insulate pipes, pick a survival room. So I'll be getting into this as I talk about the tent. This is one thing that's really important. So if you have a room in your house that is ideally in more towards the center of your house, if you have a room in the basement, that's even better because the basement maintains some of the thermal mass, the heat coming up from the ground. So find a room in your house that is going to be your survival room, right? Because if you don't have power for 10 days, you don't want to try to heat your entire house. You want to find the one room that you can heat the most effectively and focus everything on that. So even sealing off all the windows of that room. If there's doors, multiple doors to that room, seal off the ones that you don't need. So find your survival room. Okay, people, call the elderly now. This is really important because it's very unfortunate because the most likely people to pass away during some of these events are going to be the elderly people. So if you have an elderly neighbor, elderly parent, call them, talk to them, invite them to come stay with you. Right? So say you have a neighbor that's in his 80s, that's alone, right? So call them up. George, hey, why don't you come stay with us, right? We've got a fireplace. We've got some food. Just come stay with us. This is where we have to band together. Exchange phone numbers. Check on your neighbors. It's really, really important to keep in touch with your neighbors to build these local connections with people. And when there's a storm coming, even if this neighbor you haven't talked to in a long time, or maybe that neighbor has completely different political views than you do, this is an amazing time to bridge that gap and go to them and say, look, we're Americans first. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what signs are in your front yard. We're Americans first, and you're my neighbor. So how can we work together on this, right? Now is the time to do that. Exchange phone numbers. Write phone numbers down. That's a big one. Write phone numbers down. Now, I'm also going to be getting into, shortly here, what you can do if there's no cell service. Because actually, a lot of phones can still access satellite. So I'll tell you how you can do that. Okay, your car, fill your gas tank. Make sure you've got a full tank of gas. Make sure you have an emergency kit in your trunk, right? Make sure you have blankets, water and snacks, shovel, sand for traction. Again, food that you can be eating, emergency flares if you need them, even some bright little strip of cloth, right? So if you get stuck in your car, and it goes into this more in the guide, if you get trapped in a snowbank in your car, if you can go out your antenna, if your car still has an antenna on it that's sticking up, tie a little cloth on top of the antenna. It makes you easier to find. So make sure you take your car seriously, even throwing in a few extra changes of winter clothes, some heavy winter jackets, keep them in your car. Because God forbid you're out somewhere when the storm hits or when things get really bad and you get stuck 5 miles from home. You have to be able to survive in your car. And actually, a lot of people end up freezing to death in their cars because they don't plan for this. So again, there's more details on that in the downloadable PDF that you can print. But again, these are some preparations that you can do beforehand. Okay. Oops. Okay, here we go. So during the storm, stay inside. Don't drive anywhere. All right, this is a key. When the storm's hitting, do everything possible to stay inside, to not go anywhere, because as soon as you leave in your car, your risk of dying increases exponentially. So again, that's why you have to get your supplies ahead of time. You don't want to be the one that's trying to run out to Walmart as the storm is approaching to get that last thing that you didn't prepare for. That's why we got a checklist for you in that PDF. All right, so this is key. Everyone in one room, wear multiple layers, share body heat, close any unused rooms, conserve your phone battery, eat regularly, helps keep up your metabolism, helps keep your body warm to be eating. Right? Don't eat through all your food, but you want to have enough food that you can actually eat what you need. You don't want to be skimping on food to try to survive 10 days and worry of running out of food. And if you can, get a little battery radio, keep that. I've even got these little hand crank radios. I bought a bunch of them. You can get them, now they're going to be probably sold out, but in times of not emergencies, they cost a little on Amazon. These little hand crank radios, they have a flashlight, they have a radio on them. And so even with no power, you can still crank them and you can still get access to emergency radio. Okay, how to stay warm. This is really, really important. So the tent method. So here's what you do. You remember I mentioned going to Walmart and buying a tent. If you can find like a canvas tent, something that has a thicker wall to it, or even nylon's fine. Don't get one of the Stargazer tents where the whole tent is screen and it won't keep any heat in. You want to get a tent that has walls that will keep heat in. So canvas tents are ideal, but even a nylon tent that you can close up really well, which a lot of tents, they are able to do that anyway. So what you do is you find that survival room. You find that room that you've picked, whether it's a room in the basement. If you don't have a basement, you find that room that's more towards the center of the house. The smaller, the better. So it's going to retain heat. You put your tent in the middle of that room. So you pitch your tent in the middle of the room, and then everyone in your family, or whoever's in your home, you sleep in that tent inside sleeping bags. And even during the day, if your house is consistently freezing, so if you have no power and you have no heat source, again, this is how a lot of people end up dying. They just lay in their bed under some covers that doesn't keep them warm enough, and they end up dying. They never wake up. However, if you pitch this tent inside of that little survival room, and everyone is inside that tent, and that tent is sealed up properly, that tent will actually start heating up. So you'll create this little warm room inside, and that can literally be the difference of how you survive through the night. And that's the most dangerous. The most dangerous is that you go to bed somewhere and you just don't wake up because it drops down to your house gets really cold overnight. The sun's no longer shining and you don't realize it, but your house gets down to minus 10 degrees overnight, right? Or 0 degrees or even 10 degrees overnight. And you end up having a loss of life. So having a tent that you can sleep in inside of a sleeping bag with layers, ideally you're up against other people, right, to keep warm. That tent, as silly as it is, like I guarantee you'll be the only person walking into Walmart buying a tent for an ice storm. Like the cashier's probably gonna look at you like, "What are you doing? You're not going camping, are you?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm going camping in my living room." Okay, so that's the tent. The other thing, this is another way of heating that most people will not think of, is the candle and the clay pot method. So if you get those little tea light candles, you can get a bunch of them for really inexpensive. You get some of those teapots, you get a terracotta pot and a couple of bricks. Here's a picture I'll show you. So this is what it looks like. So what you do is you have some bricks or something like that. Then underneath that you have like a metal tray or something that is not going to melt and catch fire. And you light those candles underneath that terracotta pot. So what happens is that pot will trap a lot of that heat and it will start to radiate heat. Now, you're not going to heat your own house like this. It's not going to be the same as a wood stove. However, this could be the thing that gives you that extra warmth that you need. Now, just be very aware of the fact that you don't want to go to sleep with this thing burning, right? So if you're in a situation where you have to have this thing on through the night, you got to have one person that is watching it. Because if you fall asleep with this and something happens, which is, again, this is exactly how people die in these kinds of storms, you could have a fire that starts and you're toast. Like, I guess literally, unfortunately. So This is a simple thing. Again, if you go to Walmart or Home Depot and you're shopping, go get yourself a terracotta pot or a couple of them. Get a couple of bricks. I guarantee they're still going to be in stock. No one's buying bricks. Most people aren't going to be buying terracotta pots right now, right? And tents. But again, if you can do it, these are some really simple methods that you can use to make sure that you're not going to freeze to death. Okay, so continuing. Other safe methods, make sure you're dressing in layers. Make sure you're sharing body heat, even putting hot water bottles in your sleeping bags. So if you have some bottles, that can be very careful, but if you have a way of boiling water, boil some water, put it into water bottles. Again, we have a couple of these from our kids. They get sick sometimes, like the old school rubber water bottles that you use if you're not feeling well. Those are great. They will help, they'll keep you pretty warm, especially if you're keeping them inside a sleeping bag or inside your tent. If a couple of those things are going to really help to keep that temperature up inside of that sleeping area. Okay, again, there's a picture of the terracotta pot heater. Okay, never do this. There's a little kind of a silly picture I made for you there. Do not use charcoal or gas grills indoors. Do not use generators indoors, even in your garage. You'll be very, very careful with this. Do not use gas stoves for heat. Do not use running cars in your garage for heat. All these put off carbon monoxide, and that will kill you. Like, that is the silent killers, carbon monoxide. So again, this is why you have to be very careful. Again, candles, they're safe. Obviously, be careful you don't burn your house down, but do not, it doesn't matter if your husband says, hey, honey, we can do this, and they're going to pull your Weber grill inside the house. Do not do it, right? Do not do it, because that will kill you. So just a little warning there. Some warning signs. So these are warning signs of carbon monoxide poisoning: headache, dizziness, nausea, confusion, drowsiness. Really try to keep an eye out for these signs. If you're burning something, even candles, just be aware of it, right? Just try to keep an eye out for these things. If that's happening, get some fresh air immediately. Even if it's really cold outside, it's a lot better than breathing in poisonous gas. Dress in layers. This is really, really important. Get thermal underwear, not cotton. If you so my family, we all have like merino wool underlays. It's like my little girls, 2 and 5, they've got, my wife Kate bought merino jammy sets for them. So their jammies are like merino wool. They're beautiful, they're cute, but they're very warm. So if you have to have a base layer, thermal underwear. If you can't get a hold of merino wool, there's other kind of thermal things you can get. Walmart's going to have them. It's really important. Insulation, so fleece, wool sweater, puffer jackets, etc. So you have your thermal layer, you have your insulation, and then you have your outer layer, right? Something windproof, something waterproof. Also make sure that you have enough hats, mittens, thick socks, scarves, etc. Even if you're not going outside, if your house is getting down into freezing temperatures, especially your head, keep something on your head. A lot of your heat loss is through your head. A lot of your heat loss is through your feet. So keep your head and your feet warm. Pets and livestock. This is a big one. Your animals could absolutely die in this cold. It's just the reality. So if you have outside animals, dogs, cats, rabbits, birds, chickens, etc., bring them inside with you. You may not enjoy living with them, but you'll enjoy living with them a lot more than you'll enjoy them freezing to death. Keep them off the cold floors. Make sure you have extra food and water for them. Even lay down, cardboard and things if they're sleeping on the floors. So we have outside animals. We have 2 dogs that live outside. I got 2 cats that live outside, and probably 20 chickens. They all have insulated and heated houses. So, and if the power goes out, we've got a generator. So that's how I'm doing it. But if the power went out and I didn't have a generator, as much as my dogs are not inside dogs, they're work dogs, I'm still bringing them inside. So just be very mindful of that. If you have livestock, if you're, say you have goats, horses, cows, etc., really think through how you're going to take care of them. A lot of those big animals put off a lot of heat, but if you don't have the right kind of shelter for them and enough hay and deep bedding, they can freeze to death as well. Also, increase the amount of feed that you're giving them. Today I went out to my chickens. I gave the chickens an extra big pile of just cracked corn in their chicken yard. Cracked corn actually really helps to heat up the insides of the animals, for chickens at least. So increase their feed. Make sure you're also staying on top of their water. So if you check it pretty often, We have, for the chickens at least, we have a heated water bucket, so it heats it, keeps the water for them. But again, check on them every few hours. You'll be surprised at how quickly these animals could die, especially animals if you live in a warmer climate and your animals are not used to sub-zero temperatures. It could be catastrophic. We don't want to have that happen. Okay, looking at recognizing two of the biggest kind of issues with cold and death, hypothermia and frostbite. Hypothermia, early signs of hypothermia: shivering, confusion, slurred speech, fumbling hands. The severe emergency, though, is when the shivering stops, when there's a weak pulse and they're unconscious. So try to pay attention to this. You see blue lips, kind of flush, lack of blood in the face, kind of just keep an eye on these things because this is critical. If someone, again, I'm not a doctor, so this isn't medical advice, but if there is somebody that you think has hypothermia or is in that state, one of the best things you can do is get naked with them in a sleeping bag. Let your own body heat help warm them up gently. So if you have that tent that I talked about in the living room, bring them into the tent with you. Maybe keep your underwear on if you want to. It depends on who it is, right? If it's your wife, it's okay, but not your grandpa, right? But get inside the sleeping bag together with them, as much skin-to-skin contact as possible, and help warm their body up. Okay? Frostbite. Recognize its signs: numbness, white and gray skin, and a hard, waxy feel. So if you're working outside and you have, I have thick Canada Goose gloves. Even those gloves, if it's really cold outside, I'll start getting kind of numb fingers and I can feel it. So be very aware of that. Okay. If you sense that you have frostbite starting to form, don't put them under hot water. Don't rub them. Don't put them up against a really hot heat, right? Use kind of warm water around 100 degrees, warm water. Start heating them up, even a little bit less than 100 even, to kind of start warming them up, and seek medical help if possible. You don't want to lose your digits during this whole thing. Elderly, again, they are the most vulnerable, and also very young children, babies, newborns. Be very, very careful. With especially if you've got children under a year or two, really keep an eye on them. They can't regulate their temperature nearly as well as we can. Same thing with the elderly. So if there are elderly that are close to you, if you have elderly parents that say that they live a couple hours away, just keep an eye on them. Call them, invite them over. And again, like I'm saying, call them today. Strongly urge them to stay with you. Don't take "I'll be fine" as an answer. If they refuse, visit them with supplies. Bring them a little tent, bring them a sleeping bag, whatever you can. If they refuse to come stay with you, check on them every 4 to 6 hours. Make sure they have their medication. Band together, right? This is the thing. This is the key. This is why I'm building the ARC community, so that we can band together as Americans. Survival is not a solo sport. It isn't, right? A lot of people, they fantasize this idea of like, oh, I'm going to be off living in the woods. It doesn't work like that. The stronger your community, the stronger your chance of surviving, whether it's a winter storm, a war, a famine, a pandemic. The more you can band together, it's the single most important thing of survival is community. Literally. But it's oftentimes, it's one of the most overlooked things, overlooked aspects of the survival, right? Prepping. You think, okay, I'm going to buy a bunch of food, a bunch of ammunition, and booby traps, and seeds for gardening. People overlook the importance of community. And that's also, again, that's why I'm so excited to be launching this ARC community. BuildTheARC.com. Go sign up to get the notification. So why does it matter to band together? Shared body heat, shared resources, helping in emergencies. It prevents isolation, emotional support. So again, take action now. Call your neighbors today. There's no shame in this. Exchange your phone numbers. Pick the house with the best heat. Pull your resources together. And I'm serious about this. If you live in a region where you're expecting to get a couple inches of ice and you know this is going to happen, if you don't have a fireplace and your neighbor does, talk to them ahead of time and work something out. And vice versa. If you have a fireplace and your neighbor doesn't, especially if they're elderly or they have small children, invite them over. I guarantee you nothing will build a stronger bond with your local neighbors than helping them survive. Honestly, you'll build the strongest bond you could possibly imagine when you help someone like this. And again, to me, this is what it means to be an American, right? Is to help out your fellow Americans. It doesn't matter what their political views are. When it comes to survival, they're humans, right? And I think that if you have the ability to help them, you absolutely should. So again, call them now. Have that conversation. If you have a fireplace, you've got the wood, you are a beacon of hope you can save lives. Okay? The other thing, this is really, really important, is satellite texting. There's a good chance in a lot of these areas that cell towers will go down and you will lose cell service. Now, if that happens, if you have a satellite phone, great. Like maybe if you don't, maybe you should consider getting one. SAT, I think SAT 123 is for the sat phone store. Obviously, you won't be able to get it in time, but satellite phones are really critical because if the cell towers go down and you have an emergency, you are in big trouble. However, and test this ahead of time, but actually, so the iPhone 14s and plus, if you got iOS 18 or more, you can actually use satellites for sending text messages. This could be so critical. So make sure, try it ahead of time. Okay, don't wait until disaster strikes. But what you do is go outside with a clear sky view, open messages, try to send a text. You can tap use satellite, follow the instructions. Now, these are just basic instructions. So, just kind of look it up, make sure you know how to do it. There's a way that you can go and turn your setting on for satellite texting and test it out. But actually, your iPhone can actually send a satellite text message. So you can text an emergency number. You can text friends or family that still have service. That could be an absolute lifesaver. Some Android phones have it. You said go into your settings and look for safety and emergency. Look for the satellite settings. Some tips, though, keep your messages short. Include your location. Be specific about your needs. And test it now before the storm. Another thing, write down phone numbers, right? Unfortunately, we live in the era where a lot of us, our entire phone book is just living in a digital device. Make sure you have your phone numbers written down. In the guide, the PDF guide, there's a whole table for you. Print it out. There's a whole table for you to write down all the emergency contact numbers, etc. So make sure you do that. Not obviously 911, poison control, the electric company, the gas company, family, neighbors, doctors, pharmacies, and out-of-area contact. That's a key, is that have a phone number written down for someone who lives a couple states away. So if something happens to you, you can reach someone that maybe, again, if there's no cell service in your area, you can send a text message to someone that's in a different region. Really, really important. Okay, final checklist. And again, in the PDF that I have for you on the winterstormready.com, there's a couple pages of checklists in there. So I'll run this through as quickly. Water, 1 gallon per person per day, ideally for 7 days. Bathtubs filled, non-perishable food up to 10 days, ideally. Manual can opener, pet food, survival room identified, windows and doors sealed, blankets and sleeping bags, tent setup if you're using that, candles and matches, firewood if you need it, gasoline if you have a generator. All devices are charged ahead of time, extra batteries, battery radio, first aid kit, 7+ day worth of medications. Know the signs for hypothermia. Know the CO poisoning dangers. Keep your pipes protected through dripping or through foam noodles, etc. Know your water shutoff location. This is a big one. If the power goes out and you want or whatever, you want to make sure that if you're worried about your pipes getting too cold inside your house, in your basement or wherever you have your main utility, there's typically going to be a central valve. It's the main valve that lets the water into your house. Turn that valve off, open up all your different faucets, drain the water out. That will help your pipes from freezing. Okay? Check in on the elderly. Contact your neighbors. Write down your phone numbers. Make sure your family knows the plan. Bring your pets inside. Make sure you have a shelter ready for your livestock. Get your gas tank is full. Your car emergency kit is taken care of. Cash on hand, and you make a decision of whether you're staying or leaving. So if you can stay in your home, good. If you think you have to leave, even if you're getting a hotel out of state, if that means your family's going to make it through this, do it. Go to a neighbor's house, whatever it takes, okay? So we have a small window of time still left. Please use it. Preparation saves lives. Help each other, check on each other, share what you have, and stay safe. So that's the presentation. Obviously, I could have gone a lot more into detail on those things, but my goal was to try to make this as concise as possible and keep it under an hour, which looks like I'll be able to do that. But just, again, make sure you get the PDF, print this out, winterstormready.com, save it, put it on your iPad, print it out. The advice I gave you is a lot more details in this. Really important. Also, reminder, This is obviously not going to be for the winter storm. However, moving forward, if you want to start living in a way that you're more prepared, you want to start building a community around you of people that think like you do, that want to be prepared, but that also are preparing for a place of faith and family and freedom and self-sufficiency, I highly, highly recommend you check out the ARC community. Go to buildtheark.com. That's ARK. So buildtheark.com. We're launching this in a couple of weeks. We've made a lot of progress with it. I'm very excited about this. Just drop in your name and your email and you'll be on the wait list. There's already about 3,000 people on that wait list already. So join them, join the wait list. We're launching this soon. Very exciting. So that's it. I try to be concise. I have a lot to say when it comes to preparing, and prepping type stuff. But I really want this to be very useful. So just a reminder, if you can, share this video. Share this video far and wide if you can. If you have people that live in these regions, get this over to them. Hopefully this can help them. Send them the website, the winterstormready.com. Email them the link. Say, hey, free PDF here. Download it. It's so practical. It's a lot of bullet points. There's no dense paragraphs. It's bullet points and checklists. That's what it is. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with this with me. My thoughts and prayers are with you. If you're in these regions, my thoughts and prayers are with you. Just don't be too prideful to reach out for help. Whether it's your neighbor, it doesn't matter who it is. Reach out for help, offer help. When our nation faces these types of situations, these kinds of crises, this is when the American spirit really shines. And it's a beautiful thing when you see it, because we're good people. That's why all these evil people are trying to attack America, because we're actually good people. Our government may not be that good, but I know the average American is actually a good person. Like we just want our family safe. We want our freedom. We want our families to be healthy. So thank you so much for joining me for this show. Again, please make sure you share this. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the show. And I guess we'll be in touch. So take care.